Hello there, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I am your host, Rich Owens, and joining me this week, we have two beautiful, beautiful human beings. We have D-Boy Plays, and we have Steaky Bakety. D, I'm going to come to you first this week, pal. How is it? How are we? What's news?
I'm all right. I started a new teaching job this week.
Lovely.
Started working in a new school, and it was exactly as expected. I was whelmed going in, and it was absolutely fine. Yeah, it's just more of the same, just different building, basically. That's what it was. But it was good fun. It was lovely. I got to, I think I mentioned like the head of music for the school. The other school I work at now teaches at this school, so it was nice seeing him again. And yeah, it was good. But yeah, the week's been fine. It's been fine.
Lovely. What I'm hearing there is it's music teacher nepotism. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. This is people have said this. People even said this on Twitch when I was talking about it. They were like, "Oh, this is nepotism." It's like, it's not nepotism. He's not my dad. You know, he's not 4 years older than me. That's a productive big child.
Music teacher nepo baby. That's what I'm hearing. That's what
I'll take it
from this.
There's more money in my pocket. Richer. I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I'm glad it's going well, and I can't wait to hear about the next job you get because of who your music teacher dad is. Anyway,
yeah, hopefully it'll be a nice one.
Fingers crossed.
Something really famous.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Steaky, how are you this week, pal?
Hello, buddy. I'm very good, thank you. Not so bad, not so bad. My team won this weekend, which was about as interesting as my weekend got. Didn't really do much, but if Pompey get a win, I'm happy. So yeah, I'm pretty good. What about you, bud?
Oh, I'm all right. We don't talk about football at the time of recording. I forgot Sheffield Wednesday were playing Leeds today. And then I checked the score 3 minutes into the game. We were 1 down, and I closed the app on my phone and didn't look at it again till full time. Lost 3-0. Such is life. Can't have it all, can we?
Would it surprise you, chaps, that West Brom drew this weekend?
No, they didn't.
Yeah, we did.
No, they
we did.
not.
It's weird because we don't usually do that.
Yeah, strange. Day follows night. West Brom draw.
Water's wet. The sky is blue.
Consistency is key, isn't it? Consistency is key. Yeah, well, I'm glad everyone is well. I'm trying to treasure this feeling. It's nice, the nice warm fuzzy feeling I get at the start of the pod record, because I'm just happy to see my friends. It's nice to be started. It's nice to be recording. And then we start talking about Football Manager, and normally I'm quite, I like talking about Football Manager with my friends. That's all really, really nice, isn't it? But then we're recording this week's podcast. And this week's podcast is all about that thing that we do with our Monday nights, the FMT Network Save, because we have just finished, at the time of recording, we finished early this week, the 7th season of The Save, which is, sounds mad saying it out loud. It's been going since the beginning of FM23. 7 seasons. Of course, season 7 saw our lovely friends here, Dee and Steaky, both join The Save after Kev stepped away earlier in the season. We finished our first full Save season as a 4, because obviously Jeb is a big part of The Save as well. Dee, how did it go for you? If you had to summarize your first season of FMT Network Save in one word, what word would you use?
Oh, good. It was pretty good.
Yeah,
well, we started the season spinning wheels, didn't we, for Steaky?
We did.
We get the team. Steaky landed on Leicester, which was a pretty fun one, obviously previously managed by yourself, Rich. And I landed on Newcastle. And pretty much as soon as I walked in the door, it started cooking.
Yes, you did.
And I genuinely don't know what I did to make it work, but it did. And it was nice. And I enjoyed all of it.
Yeah, you did a good thing. When that wheel landed on Newcastle, Were you happy with that as a set of circumstances? Was there somebody you were hoping for?
I was ecstatic because I didn't land on Wolves, and that was it. That was the only team on the wheel I didn't want. Literally any other team that was on there would have been, happy with whatever, and I would have taken whatever had happened in the season. If we'd finished 9th with West Ham or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, all right, fine, whatever, cool. I can live with that. But yeah, we got Newcastle, and all I can say is up the tune.
Straight up there. It's interesting, isn't it? Because at the very, very beginning of the save, and this is going all the way back into the memory banks. I remember Jeb very specifically saying he would have taken any team in the league with the exception of Wolves. And then there he landed and spent a glorious 5.5 years there. Did some very, very interesting things with Wolves. Steaky, as Dee has alluded to, your wheel spin were my former club, Leicester City. When that wheel landed on the land of Walker's Crisps and Kasabian, were you feeling the same levels of excitement as our wonderful colleague Dee was when he landed in Newcastle?
I don't think I was as excited as Newcastle. I'm pretty sure I wanted Newcastle. I think I specifically said I wanted Newcastle, just because they're a fun team to manage on Football Manager, especially when you're coming into a save midway through. They've got a little bit of the moolah sometimes, and they've often got quite a good side. But Leicester, considering you'd been manager of them, you'd done quite a good job with them. So they had a few players from your time there still around. They were finishing, I think they'd finished roughly mid-table in the league beforehand. So it wasn't a disappointment, that's for sure. They play in blue, which I like blue teams. So it made me reasonably happy. I didn't really expect much from them, though. I didn't look at the team and think, hell yeah, this team's going right to the top. This team is a wonder team. I did think we need to make some pretty sharpish signings here for a few of the players, that's for sure. But I wasn't disappointed. I
think in the grand scheme of things, it was two decent teams, but for different reasons. I mean, Newcastle, you've got the financial aspect of it. You know, they every single save, FM23, when we started the game, FM24, you see them spending significant amount of money early in the game cycle. Every single new save, Newcastle are dropping, £200 million per transfer window. So there's always going to be something good there, or you've got the finances to repair anything that needs to be repaired. And likewise with Leicester, I look back at that team that you inherited. I look back at it fondly, Steaky. I loved my time at Leicester City. I've just gone back and I've had a little look through at their league finishes, because you're right, very, very mid-table. So my final season with them, final full season, finished 4th. So I got them Champions League. And that was the season I abandoned ship and left and went to Manchester United. And they finished 12th that season. And then since then, you've had 10th, you've had 10th, you've had 9th, and then you've had this season. But I was looking at that team, and there were some players in there that I brought in. And I'd love some of these players at my United side. You've got the likes of Beljo, who was very, very good, never really got a run under me. Nicolas Saniola was still kicking around there, was ever so good. Moise Casido, you had the likes of Stanisic, Balde, like the old the Barcelona wonder kid from real life. Like, there was some pretty decent players in that team. Of course, Ergücan, the Turkish goalkeeper, who has a tendency to score goals from very, very far away. I looked at that and I thought, all things considered, that's not the worst draw I've ever seen. I mean, I know both of you, I know, Steaky, you have played a lot of network saves this year. Dee, you've dabbled as well. You've done bits and pieces online as well. I know we talked, it wasn't that long ago, about transfer windows and how you approach, but for the two of you kind of coming in to a comparatively well-established save, not really knowing how much longer the save was going to be carrying on for as well. What's that approach to that first transfer window? Because Dee, I'm guessing you had an absolutely staggeringly high transfer budget when you arrived.
Yeah, I think there was a fair bit of money in the bank account, but obviously as well, not just utilizing what was in the bank account, it's utilizing what's not in the bank account is always a good idea as well. I am, of course, speaking of the never. And outside, well, to be fair, actually, I'm looking at my transfers. I think I only really did use the Never Never on maybe 3 players, maybe 3 of them, I think. And the rest of them was just like, well, that's their fee. I'm just going to spend it. But I just decided that I'm just going to sort of just make it, instead of it having a good 11, make it a good squad and just put some depth in there. Obviously, picked up Rooney Bargy from Leicester. People like Paul Vanner, Carnesecchi as a better backup keeper. Bruno Fernandes on a free because he'd been released from Saudi Arabia. In a sort of player sense, he wasn't in prison. And then Fabio Silva, because I didn't know if Isaac, I'll level with you, I didn't know if he was going to be good enough for me at the start of the season. So I thought I'll bring in a backup in case things go wrong with him. We'll get onto that.
Yeah.
We'll get on to Isaac.
We'll dip in and out, weren't we? It was a weirdly, it's not a word I use very often when describing Football Manager, but it was a weirdly incestuous transfer window for a lot of us.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, obviously I got Harvey as well, didn't I?
You did, yeah. Club icon, Kev's favourite Manchester United player ever, Harvey Barnes, made the trip up north, up to Newcastle. Obviously, as you say, Rooney Bargy made the journey over from Leicester. Bruno Fernandes, obviously out on good behaviour, so managed to transfer across to yourself on a free.
Yeah.
So, and again, Fabio Silva, not directly from Jeb, but he was one of Jeb's Wolves players for quite a few years. So you picked up essentially a player from Alfie Devine from Kev's old Spurs team as well.
Yeah. Little tip of the cap.
You really went the whole hog.
Just needed a Fulham player to make the full set, really.
Just needed a Fulham player and
player,
theoretically somebody from Alice's Palace as well, just for absolute balance.
We'll go another year.
So it was almost like everybody it's like you just moved into a new house and everyone's just lending you things. Oh, here's a striker. Go on, treat yourself. So none of those players at face value seem like key players, because it'd be daft in a network save to sell all your key players to other people in the save. And I suppose in a roundabout kind of way, Steaky, not dissimilar things happened in your Leicester City opening transfer window as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was touting up you guys, especially you and Dan, to be honest. I think I have 3 Man United players and 2 Newcastle players coming in. I had Dominic Calvert-Lewin coming on loan because Dan didn't need him because he'd bought in Silva and he's got Isak. I got Ivan Toney on a free from you because he wanted to leave and had too much money at you and he wasn't going to play. Then I got Levi Cole on loan from yourself, and Sven Botman I paid £18 million for, and considering he was my best centre-back, that's a pretty good bargain, I'd say. 6'4" beast, tail end of his career, but he's still got a little bit of pace about him. He was fantastic, so I definitely had a few. And then I also went to Fulham to take Sesko as well for £109 million. Yeah, my transfer window is very much because I'm not a huge winger fan on Football Manager. So my instant reaction when I went into Leicester went, oh, look at all these wingers I can sell. So obviously I sold Dan Rooney Bargy, and then also Shelderup went out the door for £80 million to Bayern Munich to kind of bolster that transfer fund. So I was very much keen on selling those kind of players. And then I bought in Florian Wirtz for £80 million, nearly 55 up front this season, because obviously the installments were heavily used at Leicester. We didn't have loads of money. I think I had 30 when I came in or something along those lines. And I ended up spending £296 million. I did make £278 million. So I did. I was active in these transfer windows, but a lot of that money went on Wirtz and Sesko. And then randomly in January, I bought Conor Gallagher, who played 6 games and then broke his leg or something and didn't play for the rest of the season. So that one went well. But apart from that, I thought my transfers were pretty darn good. And thank you to you guys for giving me all your players.
Happy to help.
You're very welcome. If you'd said to me at the beginning of the season, look, let Steaky have Sven Botman and Ivan Toney and then eventually Levi Colwill. Of course, absolutely he can. He's definitely not going to finish higher at the league than I did. signing those players. That's ridiculous. I'm going back. I'm looking at some of Leicester's former transfer windows, and there's a couple of seasons here where they spent 129 and 112. That's when I was in charge. And since then, it's been 38 million pounds one season. Then you just 296. But again, as you say, that 278 million pounds incoming wasn't bad. I think it'd be remiss of us to talk about transfers at this point if we also didn't mention Jeb's Liverpool team, because obviously, Jeb was, doing a few bits and pieces in the background. Jeb spent a cumulative, like if we include last season as well, his first proper full season at Liverpool.
I hadn't seen that number before.
No,
me neither.
it's a big number, isn't it? So Jeb in 2 years has spent a cumulative 800 million pounds, which is just hideous. And a big part of it, I think, was to spite me in some of his transfers. 86 million pounds on Victor Osimhen for a start. Like, I know when he took over, he basically raided Wolves. He bought in the likes of Manu Kone for 156 million pounds. 51 million pounds on Curtis Jones. Jeb spent 51 million pounds on Curtis Jones.
That's
Vitinha for 58 million pounds. So I'm pretty sure he had signed the season previously on a free. Yep, free transfer to Wolves. He scored 8 and 11, and then Liverpool paid 58 million pounds for him, which is just baffling. And then again, he bought in Kvaradona from Napoli as well for another 102 million pounds. Went back to Wolves again. Gonzalo Inacio for 71 million pounds. Calvin Bassey, another of my former players, went to PSG. He came in. And then obviously his best signing was Dele Alli on a free transfer.
Just makes sense, doesn't it?
Because it makes complete sense. Balance is key. It's like that's like ordering, a extra large Big Mac meal, 20 nuggets, mozzarella dippers, and then a Diet Coke on the end to balance it all out. That's essentially what Dele Alli is in this situation. So if I have him, the rest of it doesn't count. It did and continues to do so. I mean, again, granted, he bought it, he sold 207 million pounds worth of players, but still, he has spent an absolute fortune. I weirdly didn't. I spent a very respectable 98 million pounds this season. I only bought 2 players.
A gentleman's 98.
A gentleman's, thank you, yes. Just a humble 98 million pounds, I think, is the correct way to put that. Just a humble 98. I bought in 214 as well, so the club is stacked financially. But a casual 98 million pounds, which I think was reason. Bought in Gvardiol, and I bought in a very, very good looking new gen from Barcelona as a centre back, and I thought this is looking good. I've got the core of the team is good. The season previously I'd done all right. I think I'm looking back now, and I feel like I finished second. Yeah, finished second last season. Didn't expect to defend my title, but finished second, 2 points off City. Feeling like this could be a season for me to mount another title challenge. Felt good about it. Felt ready. Felt ready to take on the world. My 2 new signings. Spoiler alert, I didn't take on the world. I didn't have the best of starts, which was disappointing. Did any of us have a good start to the league this season? Dee, I'm looking at you.
Well, it's weird. It's funny you asked that. Because I did have a pretty good start to the league. I mean, if I get rid of all the cups just for a second and just look at the league, apart from an annoying loss against Wolves and a loss against yourself, I didn't. Well, apart from that, I had 2 losses until like the end of like middle March in the league. I had a lot of wins. I won 12 games on the 11 games, sorry, on the bounce.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to get the information wrong. Yeah, I won 11 games in a row, and most of them quite convincing, bar a 1-0 win against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. That was the only one that was stressful. The rest were fine. Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah,
just 5-1, 4-0, 5-1, 5-2, 3-0, 3-0. You know,
It was
fine.
It was fine.
it was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine. And this is a Newcastle side who you didn't go out, you didn't buy superstars by any stretch of the imagination. You rounded off what was you had the basis of a good squad. Don't get me wrong. And you didn't. It's not like you went right. I need this. I need this. I need this. I need this. I'm going to go out and buy the best in the world possible in every position. You just built a really, really, really solid squad.
To be fair, I mean, like looking at the squad that was already there, in terms of like of my first team 11 or like team players that I used quite regularly, nearly the whole squad was already there. I think the only sort of additions were Rico Lewis, Bruno Fernandes, later on Asan Oajaogo, Harvey Barnes, and that was it. The rest of the squad were already there. So I'd already got, maybe sort of 7 or 8 players that were like, this is basically my first team. And I just filled in the gaps. I bought a good right back, got a good, centre mid partner, another winger just to sort of bolster things. But it got, basically got my core team. And it was just like, all right, well, let's just use this and see what happens. And it went well.
It did. It started strongly, didn't you? Started very strong. I think you were top after a few game weeks. Then there was a little dip back down to second. Then by game week 7, you were top again, which was lovely. Steaky, did you have as good a start as Dee to your time at Leicester City?
Not as good a start. I had a decent start. Early wins against Wolves and Tottenham are always nice places to go. However, I found it very difficult to beat you guys. So there were 2 clusters within the season where I played pretty much back to back Liverpool, United and Newcastle. And each time I'm taking maybe 1 or 2 points out of the 3 games, which isn't particularly good. So those kind of broke up my season, and certainly the start, I found it quite difficult to get into quite a rhythm at the start. There were very like 3-2s kind of score lines. I was getting 2-1s, 1-1s. And it was difficult to get a kind of rhythm with the team. But as we got towards the middle part of the season, I started to pick up a more consistent level of results and level of performances. There are a few weird ones in there, like a random 1-0 home defeat to Crystal Palace. Just randomly couldn't score for a game, which was a bit random. But I had some good form patches throughout the season. However, I would say that my best form was later in the season, which I'm sure we'll discuss imminently.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Before we kind of move on to the rest of the season, just with the benefit of hindsight, if I could ask you both, before that first whistle was blown for the first game of the season in the Premier League, what did you want from this season? What were your aims? What were your hopes? What were your dreams? Steaky, if somebody could have offered you a league position or a cup run or whatever it may be at the start of the season, what would you have been happy with season 1 at Leicester?
Well, I've come off the back of a public network save in the Bundesliga with a couple of other streamers in How We Roll, Owen, Salty B and Alistair, and I was awful in that save. I was definitely the lowest of the teams, and we all kind of pushed into the top half, and I was always around the middle of the park. So my instant reaction to getting Leicester and playing up against you guys was that I'd love to have challenged for the final European place, the Conference League place. So let's say that would be a 7th place finish. Obviously, it can come down as low as 9th, but I'd say 7th place was where I'd be like, yes, this would be a great season if I finished 7th in one season with Leicester.
That's respectable. That's reasonable. Dee, same question for you, I suppose. What were your objectives for your first full season in Newcastle amongst friends in a network save?
It's similar to Steaky because I do a network save with David Nyholm and at the moment there's Cluthy, Ziggurath and KJ Plays. We do that on Friday nights. We are in the Bundesliga as well. We're in Germany. And when I've done them with David as well in the past and a couple of other lads, I've usually done okay, but I've definitely done better when branched away from them because we've always loaded a continent as opposed to just a division. So struggled when we were as a group, but as soon as they've all gone, I'm all right. Although when we did the second Bundesliga, the second tier, 2 Bundesliga, or whatever it's called, I did win that with Kaiserslautern, which was a very outside chance of winning. I was voted to, well, not voted, on the season preview, I was ranked the lowest on predicted to win. So that was a treat and oh my God, how have we managed to do this? This is wicked. So with Newcastle, there was maybe just in my mind, Champions League spot, that seems like the sort of level that team needs to be. 4th would be fine. Obviously, anything above that is wicked. And I'd be happy with that because they were in the Champions League. I think just flicking back through the seasons, I think they've been in Europe minimum, but mostly Champions League. So Champions League, keep it consistent with what's going on in the world.
Yeah, and I think that's totally fair for Newcastle because of where they were previously.
Yeah, that's why I say that, yeah.
And obviously you're then also thinking about where Rich and Jeb are going to be because I would imagine that both of you at the start of your seasons would have thought top 4 pushing for the title, right?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I definitely felt a little bit. It's really weird because I'm 4 seasons in at United now, and season 1 was just repairing damage, finished mid-table, and then I went second, then I won it, and then I finished second the following season. So again, like I said earlier, I felt title challenge was feasible for the United team that I'd built because it was I got in very, very early doors farming new gens. I've had the reason that Bruno Fernandes isn't at the club, in the team, on my screen, his name is Harry Fraud, but in real life, his name is Riccardo Giacopetti, and he was one of the very, very early new gens that I bought in, who had the potential to be as good as the likes of Bruno Fernandes quite early on. So out went Bruno, in came Giacopetti. And I did that with a lot of other midfielders, a lot of really, really good central midfielders. I finally picked up Jude Bellingham a few seasons before. I've had the likes of Marcus Rashford. I've got Noni Madueke, and it's FM23 Noni Madueke, who is one of the best wingers in world football, not FM24 Noni Madueke, who is not. I've got all these wonderful players. Endrick is fantastic. I've got a really, really solid defence with the likes of Barry Bastoni in there. Caleb Akoli's been there since I first turned up, and he's developed into an absolutely phenomenal centre-back. I've got all these great players. I've got 2 of the best keepers I could possibly hope for in Dennis Seaman and my Japanese new gen Junkie Majida. I'm looking at this team and I'm thinking, again, this is title challenge material. My season didn't start as well as either of yours or as Jeb's. For some reason, we just couldn't get going. Really, really struggled early in the season. I'm looking back to my opening Premier League fixtures now. I beat Fulham on the opening day 2-0 at home. Business as usual. Played really, really well. I then lost 1-0 away to Sunderland. Absolutely honking result. Laboured to a 1-1 draw with Aston Villa. Honking. Lost 3-1 to Chelsea, who absolutely pulled me apart. Chelsea, who, by the way, the ongoing joke in the network save has been Chelsea just have never had a transfer budget because their starting lineup was pretty much the same for about 6 consecutive seasons. This season, they started spending a little bit of money, not huge amounts. I mean, they bought Mo Salah back from Jeb, who was desperate to sell him, but they've never really signed a couple of players here and there. But the starting lineup has been fundamentally the same for 6 seasons.
And Mo Salah scored a hat-trick against you in that early game.
He very much, yes, he absolutely did. It absolutely embarrassed me, did Mo Salah running down the wing. It didn't start well. And then we struggled to find consistent form. Again, we dropped points to Crystal Palace. We got turned over by PSG in the Champions League. We just couldn't get going. But then the games we were winning We beat Napoli 6-0 in the Champions League. We beat Brentford 6-2. We put 5 past West Ham in the EFL Cup. So we were either fantastic or we were terrible. And we were leaking goals like nobody's business. We kept so few clean sheets all season across all competitions. I'm going to lean heavily into that, actually, the all competitions aspect of it, because again, we were all involved in, I think with the exception of your Leicester Steaky, we were all involved in European competitions some capacity. Dee and I were in the Champions League. Jeb was playing in the Europa Conference League for some reason, because again, similarly to me, when Jeb took over Liverpool, they were doing what my United team were doing, 4 or 5 seasons before. They're playing terribly. They were about 15th, 16th in the league, I think, when Jeb took over, and he finished in a Conference League spot his first season in charge. So he's playing in a competition which he is just too good to be playing in. Essentially, it just felt like a pre-season tournament that went on all season long. If we talk about our other competitions, because one of my excuses, here's a spoiler for people that haven't seen the network save, I'm getting the word excuses in early for reasons. Obviously, there's Champions League, EFL Cup, FA Cup, and the Premier League. So I was involved in 4 competitions for pretty much the entirety of the season. So I'm going to blame it on fatigue. If we look very, very briefly at Jeb's Europa Conference League run, because I think it's fair to say, because he's not here, I think we can talk about this aspect of his season in full. Spoilers, Jeb won the Europa Conference League this season, shockingly enough, with the best team in the competition by a considerable distance. The only other teams, for my money, that came anywhere close to his in terms of quality were Atalanta and Leverkusen. He both beat on his run. Jeb scored some goals over the course of the competition. I think it's fair to say he scored some goals and made other teams around him look silly.
Yeah.
86 goals in the Europa Conference League for Jeb this season. 86 goals. It's cheating.
Yeah, it's a lot of goals. That's outrageous, to be honest with you, isn't it?
It's disgusting.
Considering
Absolutely
the
disgusting.
next nearest team is Leverkusen with 48.
Yeah. And that's not a bad effort by any
That's
stretch
a
of the
very good
imagination in
effort.
the European competition. Yeah.
You take that. That's a healthy amount of goals to score. Atalanta 43. Well done, them.
Yeah. Well, good for you.
Silver and bronze mean nothing in the grand scheme of things, though, lads.
Absolutely
86
nothing.
goals. Christ.
He was weirdly quiet about it as well. I mean, I know that in the league phase at the start of the competition, when he was playing against clubs that, bless them, in the nicest possible way, I'm pretty sure we all joke about when we see some international fixtures. Yeah, and the right back is a plumber. I'm pretty sure for a lot of these clubs, the right back, in fact, is a plumber. They've got 7 pace, 9 acceleration, 20 fixing your taps. They're great players.
Something before we dive into those, something that is worth noting as well, is it wasn't just from league phase to the final. He played from the qualifiers to the final. So he basically played almost the entirety of the Conference League.
Yes,
it would be like a Gibraltar team making it to the final. That's the amount of games he played in the Conference League.
Absolutely staggering. Slight difference in terms of ability, but yes, in terms of the actual journey he went on. He entered the competition at the third qualifying round, first leg against Zagrillis, who he beat 12-1 at home.
Set the tone, didn't it, really?
Yeah, and then 5-0 away. But he was we joked about that one because the sheer volume of goals that he was scoring. But he kept the rest of it. He kept a little bit quiet about. I was feeling smug because despite other things that happened over the course of the season, I made it to a Champions League semi-final, and I was getting the news updates, and they was like, "Hey, all you need is 3 more goals, and you will have set a record for Champions League goals in one season." And that was around 42. And I'm like, "Hey, look at me over here." Jimmy goals in Europe can't be stopped. Imagine scoring 42 goals in a European competition. Jeb had done that by the end of the league stage. Absolutely ridiculous. I think in that first European game, Victor Osimhen scored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, double hat trick from Victor Osimhen, which is just
He had done that before he beat Lech Poznan 10-0. Before he'd done that in the league phase. So what's that? 4 league phase games and the qualifying rounds, one of which he lost in the qualifying rounds, by the way, just the second leg to CSKA Sofia. But I must admit, watching Jeb, especially in the Europa Conference League, but across the season this year, has been a joy to go to his games. Because I've had quite a lot of time off because I've not had the Europa Conference, any European competitions, and I went out of the cups quite quickly. So I've watched quite a lot of Jeb, and it's an absolute joy to watch his team just obliterate people. And it was obliteration. Some of the, like 12-1 is ridiculous, but in the semi-final second leg, he won 11-1. And I think it was more of a revenge mission because the team was Universitatea Craiova, or the University of Romania, and they beat him in the first leg 2-1 of the semi-final, and we all went, "Oh, you're going to get knocked out to Romania," and then he went, "No, 11-1." It was so good.
Wild.
Absolutely incredible. So Jeb won European gold. Congratulations. I say that not even begrudgingly. He was fantastic. The whole thing from start to finish was just a massacre. An absolute massacre. Absolutely disgusting. Had absolutely no right to be as good as he was, but he was magnificent. Absolute joy to watch. Like it was the pinnacle of that around 2011-12 Liverpool side, where you had like Daniel Sturridge and stuff. Like, we'll concede 3 goals, but we'll score 5. We can't defend, but we can score goals with our eyes closed. And that was what it was all season long. Like, again, not dissimilar to myself. He didn't keep huge amounts of clean sheets. Like, I'm looking here. His final game of the season, he beat Atalanta, one of the stronger teams in the competition. He beat them 6-0 in the final. My goodness gracious me. With the exception of that, he kept a clean sheet against Norwich in the Premier League 3 weeks before. So that was on the 5th of May. His previous clean sheet to that was the 10th of February. And then you've got 27th of January. On average, he kept a clean sheet a month. But he just scored a ridiculous amount of goals. And he did it in every single competition that he played in as well. It was very, very rare. Again, I'm looking at his wins and losses. It is very, very rare that Jeb didn't score a goal in a game. Absolutely bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. And I think that's what he had going. If we compare my season to Jeb's, because as we talk about competitions, I wasn't keeping clean sheets, but there was also a lot of games that I wasn't scoring in as well, which I found quite frustrating. I mean, I've touched upon the Champions League there. You know, I've spoiled it by saying I made it to a semi-final. How'd you get on in Europe this season, Dan?
Do you know what? It was a fun one. As far as the league phase went, absolutely smashed it. Absolutely smashed the league phase. We didn't lose, from what I can see here. Yeah, didn't lose a single game in the league phase. 1-6, drew 2, and drew against Bayern Munich and RB Leipzig. So you can imagine, with league form going pretty well at this point, and Champions League going pretty well, I was feeling very confident. I'd got an air of confidence to myself, and I was thinking, am I gonna win the Champions League? Because in previous FMs, when I've had a very good league phase, I've usually won the Champions League. However, nemesis of the podcast, Benfica, thought we're going to take that away. We're going to take that away. And I lost both games against them in the round of 16, only by 1 goal in both games, but we lost and got knocked out. So, which was kind of good in a way, because it meant that you met them in the quarterfinals, and you were wonderful. You seeked revenge. You got it. And that's two separate saves this year that you've humbled Benfica.
Yeah, Benfica.
How does that feel?
You know what? I'll take the wins where I can find them after this season. I will absolutely take those. Absolutely take that one. Yep, revenge was lovely, overshadowed by the fact that it would have been fun to play each other.
That would have
Champions League.
That would have been very
but
nice.
You know what? I can't have it all.
I'm glad we didn't, because looking at the season, I didn't beat you once.
No, which surprises me, given how other things went across the season. Yeah, the fact that, that genuine. I mean, the first win was the biggest one, clearly, in the preseason Bisto Cup final, named after that awful gravy company that just wouldn't give us their money. So yeah, picked up some points again. Yeah, beat you in that, lifted a trophy. Very, very exciting. And then in terms of the league as well, a big 4-2 win at home, which was very exciting, and then a 2-2 draw in the run-in as well. So again, it's narrow margins, but I suppose it's maybe across 2 European legs it might have been different. Who's to say? Maybe. Who's to say? You never know.
I was fine with it. I'd got attentions elsewhere, to be honest with you, because I guess domestically, we'd obviously got EFL Cup and the FA Cup. By that point, to be fair, the FA Cup was going okay for me. So there was a little bit again. There was once again, seeing your names in naming lights. There's a bit of me looking at, especially the teams that were in the competition as well. It was like, might have a chance here of doing something. So I didn't really mind that I got knocked out of the Champions League. Yeah, wasn't too bad. Not a bad effort.
Yeah, not a bad effort at all. In hindsight, I had a bit of a conundrum because I blamed fatigue across for some of my performances. I'm going to keep on blaming fatigue, and I didn't have a great year for injuries. Oh, the excuses are racking up now, aren't they?
Good of him.
I made it to the
grass was too wet every game.
Oh my god! At some point, the sun was shining and it went in our eyes. Sometimes it was dark when we were trying to play football as well. I was furious about it.
The FL Cup ball is just different. The ball's just different.
The ball is very, very different.
We've
been training with a picture of a Jabulani, and when you actually kick a real football, very, very different to kicking a piece of paper. So, extenuating circumstances. I mean, we had an FA Cup run, made it through to the 5th round, and got knocked out on penalties by Sunderland, frustratingly, after Junkie Machida scored a dramatic 124th minute equaliser from the penalty spot. Because goalkeepers on penalties is funny, isn't it, Steaky?
Yes.
So we had an FA Cup run. I made it all the way through to the League Cup final, where I was beaten by Jebaru's Liverpool, which was I want to go out on a limb and say that it was a replay of the year before's final. I could be making that up. No, sorry, it was 2 seasons previously. I'd played his Wolves team in the final, and I beat him in that one. So Jeb and I are 1-1 in Carabao Cup finals. So I lost in the League Cup final, and then made it all the way through to the Champions League semi-finals, where I picked up a heroic 2-0 win against Real Madrid in the first leg at Old Trafford, and then we went to the Santiago Bernabeu for the second leg, and it was one of the worst games of football I've ever seen. My team just didn't. I'm looking at it. My highest rated player from the second leg was Jude Bellingham, who finished on a 6-7. Everybody else, it was 6-3s, 6-2s, a couple of 6-5s in there. Just the most lackluster, unambitious game of football I've ever seen in my life.
It was
got
painful
turned
to
over.
watch.
Yeah, it's awful. Got turned over 3-0. Went out in the semi-finals, which didn't really help me in the grand scheme of things, because I could have done victim of my own success. Let's put it down to where arguably there was no success because I didn't win anything. I didn't need to be in 4 competitions for the majority of the season. I probably should have just sacrificed one of those earlier on, because as we kind of, start to get towards the end of the season, during my run-in, my goodness gracious me, it wasn't looking great for me. At one point, I think my lowest, in fairness, my lowest league position of the entire year was 13th, and that was right at the beginning of the season where we just couldn't buy a win to save our lives. Then we started to stabilize. I'd say my game week kind of, 50 and all the way up until around game week 30, my midpoint of the season was good. And at one point, we managed to get up to the dizzying heights of 4th in the league. There was one glorious week where, well, a couple of glorious moments where we were the top 4 in the league all at the same time, which was really, really quite lovely. Very, very similar to that bit in the Matrix where they're flying the Nebuchadnezzar around and they go outside and they have to go above the clouds. And it's like, oh, it's beautiful sunshine. Oh, isn't this lovely? And then it just plummets back down through the clouds. And spoiler alert, Trinity dies. The film is 26 years old. If you've not seen it at this point, that's on you. Sorry, I can't help you. And that's, again, kind of what happened with the end of my season, really, because we lost the EFL Cup final. We got knocked out of the Champions League very, very, very late on. I finished the season mostly down to the fact that I had very favourable games, my last 2 games against Norwich and West Brom, who Norwich finished bottom of the league and West Brom finished 15th, but no disrespect to West Brom, D, only because Sunderland, Brentford and Norwich were all atrocious. So, could have been anybody. 2 very favourable fixtures for my last 2 games of the season. I scraped 6th in the league, which isn't very good. And I'm really, really glad that nobody else found it funny and everyone's been really, really supportive about it since it happened. You've got the next 2 minutes just to say whatever you need to say. It's fine. I can take it. I'm a big boy.
I mean, look, it is what it is, right?
It is what it is. It is what it is. Okay, yeah, good.
There was in very much in real life, there was that massive period where Man United were the best team in England, arguably the best team in Europe, maybe the world, and were just dominant and everybody wanted United to lose. Then they lost Fergie and it all started falling a little bit off. Then they got saved by Rich Owens.
I was about to say, are you calling me David Moyes in this capacity? Is that what's happening here?
Not at all.
No.
Okay.
They got saved by you. You won the league with them and maybe things were looking up. And then they went straight back to being as they've been for the last few years.
It's been objectively awful. Like, what I don't understand is how it's a squad that has been strengthened after finishing second first, then second. And then everything. And we all know in FM things do occasionally start going terribly, terribly wrong. I think I mixed up a little bit tactically at the start of the season and it didn't work. Then I went back to my tried and tested. And then everything was okay again after that. But we shouldn't have been as consistently bad as we were. I can't get my head around why we were so bad.
See, you use the word consistently bad there, but I think that's the exact problem. So inconsistent. Going from winning 6-1 against Wolves to losing in the EFL Cup final, to then winning 4-3, then drawing 1-1 with Everton, then losing 1-0 to Tottenham, then beating Real Madrid, then drawing 3-3 with, I mean, you had some great games with Jeb, drawing 3-3 with Liverpool. The EFL Cup final, I have to say, was a particular highlight of your season. Even though you lost it, it was nearly so beautiful. It was nearly wonderful. Jeb went 3-0 up, and it was like, oh, well, the EFL Cup, it's done. And then you scored in the 75th minute, the 82nd, and the 90+1 to make it 3-3. And me and Dan had joined by this point. Our game had finished, and we were like, "Oh, this is spectacular to watch. This is wonderful." And then in the 90+3, you lost to a Victor Osimhen goal.
It had to be him. Didn't it?
Don't. It's too much. It genuinely hurt.
For those that don't know, Jeb and Rich have a argument over who is better in Football Manager, Osimhen or Lukaku. And Jeb is very much in the Lukaku field, but bought Osimhen just to spite Rich.
He could have signed Lukaku if he really wanted to, if he thought he was the better player, but no, he just went out and bought the actual better player who won him a cup final against me, which was heartbreaking. So I slumped to a very disappointing 6th. a lot of players are unhappy. For some reason, I had to promise Jadon Sancho that I was going to win the Champions League this season. And then for context, in that second leg against Real Madrid, he was the second worst player on the entire pitch for me the whole game. And now he's angry because I didn't win the Champions League. I'm like, that. I feel like, from my point of view, there's diminished responsibility on my part. Jadon. So, yeah, I stunk up the gaff, 6th place finish, inconsistency after inconsistency after inconsistency. Jeb, because he is not here, we'll touch upon Jeb's Premier League season. He won the Europa Conference League, because of course he did. He won the Carabao Cup, and Jeb's £800 million Liverpool side finished 3rd in the Premier League table, which again isn't terrible considering the form they were in when he took over. Not awful. His team did score 102 goals across the
plus the 86
across the league season. Just to point out, 102 in the league, 86 in the Europa Conference League.
Yep,
a further 20 or so in the EFL Cup. Let me just get the accurate number for that, because I feel like I'm doing an injustice if I don't. I mean, I can already see. Oh, my favourite game of the season, straight there, I've remembered it now, was going to watch Jeb play Middlesbrough in the first round of the EFL Cup, or the second round. It was 5-5 at half time and ended up winning 8-5. It was ridiculous. Middlesbrough scored with every single shot, and it was hilarious. But yeah, 8-5, 7-3, 4-0, and then 4-3 in the cup final, and a 4-2 loss in the second leg of the thing to put Jeb on well over 200 goals for the season, which is absurd.
Remarkable.
Absolutely ridiculous. Darwin Núñez, who came from Benfica to the Big Reds, finished the season on 42 goals in all competitions, 29 in 26 in the Premier League for Darwizzy, which isn't an awful return when you really break it down. So Jeb's ultra-attacking Liverpool side finished 3rd, 77 points, which is a very respectable total. Very, very respectable. Again, I'm going back, and previous seasons he would have been challenging for the title on 77 points for sure. It would have got him second place finishes for in fact, it would have won him the league back in 23-24 when Liverpool won the league with 77 points. So hey, it's been done. It's absolutely been done. So heroic effort from Jeb there. But we haven't touched upon Leicester and Newcastle's ends of the season. Steaky, you wanted, or you would have been very, very happy with European football for Leicester City. Now, we know you didn't finish 6th, and we know you didn't finish 3rd. How'd you get on, pal?
Yeah, like I said, it was a decent season with a couple of odd patches of bad form. But as we hit the end of the season, we started to really hit our stride. And out of the last 10 games of the season, I won 9 of them. I was very lucky to not have any cups at this point, and any European football I didn't have anyway. But yeah, I was out of the cups pretty much straight away, I think. I got to the 4th round of the FA Cup, so I got past Preston before being obliterated by Dan's Newcastle side 6-1, where we both rotated our teams, and Dan just went, yeah, this new signing Odrego is quite good, isn't he? And beat me 6-1. That was fun. And from that point on, really, I just decided not to lose. And at the same time, I won't quite reveal the position that we're in at that moment. At the same time, the opposite was happening for you, Dan, wasn't it, really, towards the end of the season?
Yeah, I had a rotten look at the end of the season. I mean, after our Champions League bow out, we were struggling to get through games. I think in fact, it was actually, I'd say, we had a loss against Spurs, and then it was draws, 0-0 draws, 1-0 wins, 2-2 draws, like scraping points as and where we could, but it wasn't it was nowhere near as fruitful to everything prior to, I would say, February the 10th. Everything before that went so nicely. And then as soon as we got knocked out of the Champions League, it was like the wind got knocked out of their sails, and they just went, "I don't want to play anymore. I can't be bothered." And it started going a little bit wrong.
Yeah, with about 10, 12 games to go, you were substantially top of the league. I'm talking maybe double figure points.
I think at one point, the most I was maybe 13 points.
Yeah, and I think you had games in hand at certain points as well, and it looked like you had won the league pretty simply. But your team then went, "We're on the beach now. We're on the beach for the last few games of the season." And as a result, it was really close towards the end of the season between me and Dan at the top of the league.
It was very, very close. Very, very close indeed. That, I think you've hit the nail on the head. That Champions League exit, morale dropped off. I think we've also, it's happened to all of us. It happened to me in the Scandi Triple Crown a few years ago. Got knocked out of a European competition, and my team just stopped playing football. I don't know what it is. We were joking. We were joking back towards that, as you say, early February. We were like, when are you going to declare that you've won the league? When are you going to declare that the title is yours?
I would like to note that throughout that whole time, I said, "Don't you worry, there's time for me to bottle it. Don't you worry, there's still time for us to throw this away." And I mean, the team were doing their best to absolutely throw the game away. Just throw whatever lead I'd somehow managed to get. Yeah, like I say, like waiting just a little bit late to be like, "Oh, should we score a goal? Should we do it now?" He looks scared. Yeah, all right, we'll do it now. No, I don't really feel like playing today. We'll just defend. And that was it. And they were just toying with my emotions. Far too much.
I mean, this is the thing. In your final 4 league games of the season, Dan, your Newcastle team dropped 3, 4, 5, 7 points. You dropped in the last 4 games of the season. Your run-in was an absolute stinker, I think, for context. Arsenal away, City at home, United, who, to be fair, you could have just rolled the dice and whatever happened. Oh, we've won 10-0. Oh, we've lost 1-0. It could have been either or.
Anyway, really.
And then Jeb's Liverpool on the final day of the season. So you dropped lots and lots of points. Steaky, you were the absolute form team in that run-in.
To be fair, the opposite of fixtures. So after I played Dan with 11 games to go, where I scraped a 0-0 with a red card, which I was very happy with because he was all over me. As I said, I won 9 out of those 10 games, and I had West Brom, Fulham, Sunderland, Aston Villa, Brentford, Crystal Palace, Norwich, Leeds, and West Ham. So that run is extremely favourable. However, in there was a Chelsea game, and I said to Dan, the league will be decided on whether or not I beat Chelsea. And I don't think it was in the end. I think it was decided fairly earlier than that. But I did lose 2-1 to Chelsea, and they only had 2 shots in the entire game, and it annoyed me. Blimmin' Christian Pulisic.
Damn you, Christian Pulisic. You've never been that good, nor will you ever be. Although he has, in a roundabout way, in that one game, just proved that sign Pulisic guy from Twitch that was doing the rounds about 3 years ago. It's proved him completely right. Who saw that coming? So it all came down to those last run of games. I mean, again, just to make it all about me very briefly, that bloody Benfica team, they did it to me. And what's the story? They won 16 games in a row and pit me to the title with Porto. But 2 points separated the top 2 come the end of the season. So I think it's only fair that we congratulate the FMT Network Save Season 7 winner, your champion, your better, your managerial superior. It's Mr. D-Boy Plays, everybody. Congratulations, D. Congratulations. What an effort that is.
Thoroughly deserved.
And equally as impressive, Leicester City's 2nd place finish. Highest ever finish for them over the course of this save. Absolutely ridiculous from the 2 of you. Absolutely ridiculous.
If I hadn't thrown away the games against Man United and Liverpool, it would have been a 7-point lead at the end of things. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy with how that went.
Weirdly enough, quite happy.
Am I all right? Am I okay with that? Yeah, of course I'm happy about that. I won the blooming Premier League. It was wicked. Alexander Isak, absolute goal machine. Who'd have thought? Just hit the ball in his direction and he'll score.
Strange that. I mean, he went through a real run where he was just scoring was so easy for him. He just stopped doing it with his feet. He was like, just headers. Yeah, headers is fine.
I'm sure. So I mean, we got a couple of hat-trick headers.
We talked about Darwin Núñez and his goal scoring exploits across the season. He 29 Premier League goals for Darwin Núñez. That's golden boot winning territory. No, it's not. No, it's not. Alexander Isak, the man who you spent nearly £50 million on a backup striker just in case he didn't perform for you this season. How many goals did he finish on, D?
He scored 34 in the Premier League and in across all competitions. It would be 46 starts and 5 sub appearances. He scored 40 goals. So he didn't actually score as many goals as Darwin, but I would argue that Darwin maybe had slightly worse goalkeepers in front of him. But yeah, 34 in 36 league appearances is pretty bonkers. That's Haaland territory.
Yeah.
That's for context, across this save, the most goals he has scored in a season for Newcastle, 19 back in the 25-26 season. So with only 3 more league starts, he scored 15 more under you, which is nothing short of incredible. I mean, the other thing we can say about your season as well, D, is that, despite your exit from the Champions League, you kept the torch burning in the FA Cup as well, didn't you?
We sure did. We after knocking out Steaky, rotating heavily, and then for some reason they decided actually we're going to turn it on for this game. We got a game against Southampton, which of course I had to beat them for Steaky. Purely had to beat them just because of the hatred, and it was worth it. And I felt very good about that one. Then we got Spurs in the quarterfinal, and this one was a bit nervy because I think I'd struggled against Spurs maybe previously. We'd only beaten them 1-0 in the league, and it was a tough 1-0. And then later on in the league after this fixture, we did lose to them as well, but we did manage to squeeze past them 2-1 in the quarters. Then we played my beloved West Brom in the semi-final, and you've no idea how much I wanted to throw that game. In my head, there's like, if I intentionally throw this game, could West Brom win an FA Cup in this universe? But I was looking at the other fixture, and it was Man City, Sunderland. And all I was thinking was, well, Man City have won this game. My boys have got 0 chance against Man City. So I'll just play normally and see what happens. And we beat them 2-0. Of course, in the other leg of the FA Cup, Sunderland humble Man City, and the FA Cup final is what do they? I don't even know what they call the derby. A Mackham derby, the Toon derby. What's it called?
Is it Tyne and Wear?
Tyne and Wear derby. That makes sense because it's on the Tyne and Wear. So yeah, the FA Cup final was a Tyne and Wear derby, which was pretty cool actually. That's quite fun for an FA Cup final. The fact that they also got there considering they got relegated is so FM. That is one of the most FM things I've ever seen. Just like, yeah, you've done awfully in the league, but for some reason, the FA Cup could be yours. And
the full Wigan.
Full Wigan.
The potential for the full Wigan. Yeah.
Potential to go full Wigan. And yeah, we took them on at Wembley. And as is tradition in Football Manager, it likes to really ruin your day at times. And Shola Shoretire scored in the 7th minute for Sunderland. And I was 1-0 down. So half time was a very angry team talk from me.
And they were all over you in the first half as well, weren't they?
Really,
if I remember correctly.
Every highlight was Sunderland, and they just, other than that goal from Shoretire, they just couldn't hit the target. They were just missing, and it was like all I felt was, well, we've lost this game. We've absolutely bottled this. This is rubbish. How have you done this, lads? We can't lose this game. So I shouted at them. I told them off, and then they remembered that they can play football again. And Asan Uedraogo whose surname is the noise a groan tube makes, and Alexander Isak remembered that they can score goals, and they both scored. I shouldn't have done that as you took a drink, and I'm so sorry. We're going to accidentally make Rich die, and we don't.
Funny noises, my Achilles heel. Who knew?
But then we went on to beat them 2-1 in the final. So we managed to do the domestic double, which was fun. Premier League and FA Cup. Very, very snazzy for the Toon boys.
And this was at 1 o'clock in the morning as well, because we were determined to finish.
I'd gone to bed. At this point, I'd gone to bed.
Yeah. And we still hadn't. We hadn't even played the Conference League final at this point either, had we?
No.
Poor
Thankfully,
Jeb.
Jeb made that very easy to get through, because he obliterated Atalanta and then just went, just the commentary only. Slowly, it's fine. It's fine. We were tired.
It was always going to happen, wasn't it? It was always going to happen. So, all in all, a wildly successful season for 3/4 of the podcast. You be the judge of who the person that wasn't wildly successful was. Could be any of it.
Don't do yourself a disservice here, right?
I was talking about Jeb.
Jeb had a good. Look, you won the Arbisto Cup.
And that's what matters.
Back when we wanted them to be a sponsor, that mattered.
Yeah. Exactly. All the way back then, we cared a lot about that competition. It's now dead to me, and I hope we never have to play in it again. I think the good end to my season is that just before I said goodbye to everybody and went off to bed on Monday night, I thought my season was all done and dusted. 'Twasn't. I had to go and have a little chat with the Manchester United board, didn't I? They were deeply unhappy with me as a human being, as a person. And they wanted to know why I was so bad at managing Manchester United. I thought boardroom meetings were mutually exclusive to Kev in the network save, who, my goodness gracious me, has had so many of them, undeservedly, I will point out, as I feel mine was completely undeserved. In I went. There was a genuine feeling in the air that I was going to get sacked. It's going to make me sound like I'm really, really big headed here. I haven't had to do a boardroom meeting in FM in a very long time.
Yeah.
Mostly because of the saves that I'm doing. Means I'm probably going, it's not because I'm brilliant at the game. It's just that I'm managing clubs that there is a level of expectation that generally you're able to get comparatively close to. Going into that meeting, I was not confident at all that I was going to have a job at the end of it. Fortunately, they asked one of the easier boardroom questions, which is, results haven't been met expectations. Why do you think that is? And I guessed the right answer. And they went, oh, okay, fair enough then.
Yeah, but you say it like that, it's fine.
Well, when you answer this quite straightforward question, actually, that's fair. Felt very much like when you request something from the board and they say no, and then the next day they announce they're going to do it, which is always a really, really, really weird one. It's like, can I have new training facilities? How dare you? And then the next day, when you were in the office the other day talking about Love Island, we've decided we're going to improve our training facilities. What are the chances?
Always presented as their idea as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
10 times that you come and ask us about youth facilities, and we weren't about that.
No.
How about
but
youth
now all of a sudden,
though?
We bloody love youth facilities. Why didn't you ask? You should have asked about those before. You silly goose. So yeah, I saved my job just about. But here's my question, fellas. To what end? Because time is, to all intents and purposes, our enemy in the context of this save, because, as we discussed last week on pod, we are not a million miles away now from FM25. A network save season takes a good, because we only play it once a week, and that's dependent on 4 different human beings' availability. Not always a guarantee that we can get together. is there going to be enough time to play one more season? It's a question that we've been mulling over for the last week or so since we wrapped up season 7. I can confirm, podcast exclusive, that there is time for one more season. The FMT Network Save season 8, all or nothing, working title to be decided. There you go. Perfect. For the thumbnail. Quick.
Yours was a little bit more.
Well,
I don't know what to do. Massive announcement. I don't know what to do. Yeah, season 8, we are going to do it. However, we discussed this with our beautiful colleague Jeb before we started recording tonight's podcast. Because of the time element, and there are also other things that we would like to do before the end of the FM24 game cycle that may involve people who might be watching or listening to this podcast. Maybe. What we don't want to do is drag it out. So I'm going to put this forward to you guys as a plan, which we've already made. I'm going to discuss it with you, the viewers, in a very one-sided conversation.
That's how podcasts
Next
work.
week. I know. It's exactly how it works. Next week, well, technically at the time of recording, tomorrow, 20th of January, we shall meet on Monday night and we shall do our pre-season, our season 8 pre-season. We'll do the buying, we'll do the selling, we'll do the scouting, we'll do the negotiating. I will offload my worst players to State Bake again, who will somehow win the Champions League next season using them, because that's just how it works.
Of course.
Sven Botman, seriously, what happened? We'll do that next week. The week after, which will be the 27th of January. You know that beautiful song, 4 Seasons in One Day? That's wildly optimistic, but I think 1 season in one day is very feasible. So 8 p.m. on the 27th of January on all of our collective Twitches, we finish the story. FMT Network Save, season 8. The entirety of the season will be completed in one sitting. One sitting. One sitting. We're now holding up one finger each, which collectively adds up to 3 fingers, and that's too many. And put your mind down.
Yeah.
There you go. You're the champion. You get told yours aloft.
Yeah, thank you.
As the winner,
the
you get finger rights. No.
Let's not name it. I don't think it needs labeling.
Let's just not name it. Sometimes you don't need to name things. So, 27th of January, 1 season in one night. Imagine that. Season 8, the final season of the FMT Network Save. It's all been building towards this for some reason. And it's going to be fantastic.
This is going to be the one. Something will happen, and
something is
fine.
guaranteed to happen. Somebody may get fired. Hello. Somebody may win some things. Somebody may not win some things. At the time of recording, according to the league table, I am in the Europa League. However, because coefficients haven't been awarded yet, the Champions League final hasn't been played yet, which, to be fair, is El Clasico. It's Barcelona Real, so it's not going to affect our league table anyway. It's probably going to be good. I might scrape a Champions League place. So wouldn't that be fun? All 4 of us in the same European competition at the same time. That's never happened before on the Network Save. Everybody playing in the same European competition simultaneously. Look, it's going to be good. I would encourage you to get involved with tomorrow night when we are planning it, and on the 27th when we rattle through it all. We will all be there. Jeb will be here with us. I would be very, very surprised if Roy and Carlton and AI Callum weren't there as well, falling up and down the stairs, possibly at the same time. Who knows? So good.
It's the best noise. It's so good.
Best. It's the absolute best noise. So that's the plan. FMT Network Save culminates 27th of January, and you should be there. You should absolutely be there. We're probably not going to get too much time to talk about it on the podcast before then, Because, fellas, I don't know if you're aware of the concept of numbers. Did you know that next week is episode 200 of Football Manager Therapy? Did you know that?
That's a
200.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. It's a lot of podcast. Some might say too much podcast.
But you said it was 100 episodes that obviously TJ passed the reins over.
This is very true. Yeah, it was 100 episodes ago that we announced the departure of our former colleague and an all-round wonderful human being, Tony Jameson. He moved on to he went to go live on a farm. I think that's essentially what happens, isn't it? Yeah, went to go live on a farm. He's building orphanages in Mexico.
Yeah,
he's doing something. Hard to say.
Something around the world. You know,
something around the world. Something around the world. So that's episode weird. So it was 100 episodes ago. This episode that we announced the imminent departure of Mr. Jameson.
Congrats on 100 episodes of hosting overall, by the way, Rich.
Absolutely.
That's bonkers, isn't it? I mean, technically that's next week. Technically that's next week. At this point, 100 episodes ago, I was panicking. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. What is how do you host a podcast? Still haven't figured it out. One of these days, it'll come to me. So next week, episode 200, we might be doing something a little bit special. Who's to say? Who's to say? We are, because it's our podcast. We've planned it. We've planned the whole thing. We've planned next week's episode. We planned the week after. Look at us planning episodes like some kind of episode planning committee. It's disgusting, isn't it? Absolutely disgusting. So next week, 200 episodes of Football Manager Therapy. Absolutely bonkers, that. Absolutely bonkers. So next week we're doing special things. Might not get to plug the network save too much. We'll be busy doing other things. Don't know why I'm dancing. It's just what started happening. No, okay. Cool. I'm over it now. Fellas, that felt very much to me like a podcast based around recapping your successes and my failures, which I feel is the correct thing to have done this week. Before we go, it's the thing to do, isn't it? I'll be honest with you, I had a little game to play, but we've been talking for so long about our wonderful network save. I'll save it for another time. It's not going anywhere. I'll save it for next time. Before we shoot off, though, champions' rights, I feel, Dee.
Yes.
If the people wanted to watch you doing all the wonderful things you do on the internet, including battering people in network saves, where can they find you doing it?
Well, if anybody would like to come and hang out with me on Twitch, it is twitch.tv/dboyplays. I'd also like to do a little plug for the other champion of the year, Jebbaroo, twitch.tv/Jebbaroo. Go and watch him as well when he's hopefully maybe playing some FM, or he'll be playing GTA or Rust or doing some sort of quiz, fun stuff online. He's great.
Elden Ring sometimes.
Elden Ring
sometimes, which I don't hate. Progress. Personal growth. Yeah. That's what I put it down to. I'm going to chalk it down to personal growth. Steak Debatey, where can the people find you doing all the wonderful internet-based activities that you get up to?
twitch.tv/the_steak_bake and the steak bake on all the other platforms and stuff that matter very greatly, and I'm definitely active on all of them. Yeah, come and hang out. Obviously Monday we've got the network save. Tuesday we might be starting a brand new Pokemon Nuzlocke with Callum, former podcast member Callum.
Remember him?
He might be there. Who knows?
Imagine that.
I remember him.
Imagine that. What a time to be alive.
Rich was invited, but he declined because he said Jeb would bully him too much. So
Jeb doesn't let me do things like have fun with Pokemons. So I'll watch from a distance. You would. I'd be ghastly at it anyway.
Hey.
Good.
Hey.
This is why
Haunter.
He's people.
Cool. Okay. Good.
A Jigglypuff.
Genghis Khan. Right. Anyway, as for me, twitch.tv/Rich Owens. I won't be playing Pokemon on there. I'll be playing Football Manager. There's a very angry cat outside my door. If that picked up on the recording, I hope it did, because that was haunting. Absolutely terrified me. Absolutely. Thanks for ruining the outro, Patrick, you jerk.
He did say Haunted, doing an impression, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Smashed it. Context is key, isn't it? It's wonderful. Fellas, thank you so much for joining me this week. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you, the audience, for watching, for listening, however you are consuming this podcast. We appreciate you enormously. That wraps it up for another episode of Football Manager Therapy. We will see you on the next one. Episode 200, baby. Take care. I love you lots. Vaporeon. Bye-bye. So I got carried away again, didn't I? Did it wrong. Silly me.